Welcome back to Chronic Pain Journey with Susie Wolf. I'm Susie Wolf. I told you last week that I was going to spend this week telling you my story, and I am. However, I have decided to split it into two parts. Before I found out about the pain pump and after I found out about the pain pump. The reason I've made this decision is I know that some of you out there are interested in the process of how the pain pump works. So I want to be able to give you a detailed description of what that was like and be able to maybe even share some pictures with you. Also, I want you to know that I have decided not to write a script or use notes because that was very distracting to me last time. So I'm just going to sit and tell you the story. So please forgive pauses and ums and oh no, wait, this happened first because that may happen. And once again, I wanted to remind you that at somewhere through the pain process, which we'll talk about today, my voice got really messed up and it's not 100% yet. So I know I take a lot of pauses or stretch out words or I don't know. I don't hear it. So, but I know everyone else does. So, here we go. Back in 2006, I was living in Dallas, Texas, and I was working for a company where we held seminars that help people deal with their personal demons. And at the time, when people asked me what my job was, I would answer, I help other people be happy. And I was very happy at the time with my job and with how things were going. And then in the fall of 2006, I started feeling pain in my lower right abdomen. And it wasn't that bad, but I thought to myself, well, it might be an appendicitis, so I went to the emergency room. At that time, they offered me pain meds, and I said, no, it's not that bad. I just wanted to be sure. And they said that your white cell count is slightly elevated, but nothing else seems to be wrong. Since then, I found out my white cell count is constantly high, and I'm currently being tested for that as well. So they sent me home. I went home, took some Tylenol, got a heating pad, and went to sleep. The next day when I woke up, it was very, very, very bad. So, still, knowing it wasn't appendicitis, I laid on the couch with a heating pad, assuming it was cramps, some sort of weird cramps I'd never felt before. And so, took a lot of Tylenol, curled up with the heating pad, and read some Harry Potter to take my mind off of it. By that night, it was almost where I couldn't stand it, but I still had a little room left. So I did get myself to go to sleep, but it woke me up at extremely early in the morning. So I sat on the couch and waited for it to be a decent enough hour to call my sister, and she took me back to the ER. I did not turn away pain meds this time. And they said they still couldn't find anything wrong with me, gave me a list of doctors in the area, and sent me home with a bottle of pills. So I went to that doctor, and he said over the next month we'll run a lot of tests. I said, what do I do if it's really bad between now and then? He said, go back to the ER, but know that they will admit you at that point. And I said, okay. So I put off going to the ER as long as I could, but it wasn't long until I couldn't handle it and went back. And he was right. They did admit me, and I was in the hospital for 10 days. When the pain you are complaining of is abdominal pain, that means they hand you over to the GI team. And I had every GI test known to this small suburban hospital, and they still could not find anything wrong. So at the end of 10 days, they said, "I'm sorry, we can't find anything. We highly suggest you see a psychiatrist." And they sent me on my way with about a 30-day supply of pain meds. At this point, I'm just going to shorten this point. At this point, I went through hell. The next time I went to the ER, my dad suggested that I go to downtown Dallas to Baylor, where they, I went to a gynecologist. I ended up having several surgeries, lost my right ovary and my appendix. Then I ended up at this holistic doctor who, besides medicine, did acupuncture, acupressure, massage, different things to try to treat the problem. The problem was he gave me lithium and Seroquel, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with lithium and Seroquel, but they are antipsychotic medications that I guess some people use for pain, but the amounts that he gave me, I found out later, were the amounts that you would give a severe schizophrenic. I was on extremely high doses of both of these medications at the same time, with no warning of what the side effects might be, and no warning not to drive, no warnings at all. Just instructions on when to take them, which was several times during the day. So not only was the dose high, but I took them at least 4 times a day. And it really messed with me. It turned me into a complete and total zombie. I fell asleep on my left side one night and ended up sleeping for almost 48 hours straight. When I woke up, my left arm was asleep. I believe it was my left arm, if I remember right. I think I could still write. My left arm fell asleep, and then when it kind of stopped feeling like it was asleep, it still had lost all feeling. And for 3 months, I could not lift my left arm. I could not hold anything with my left arm. I could not gesture with it, and you may have noticed that I gesture a lot, but I couldn't gesture with it. I couldn't raise it from my side. It just hung there like a sack of potatoes, and that lasted, like I said, around 2 months. Now, I've always, my whole life watching these TV shows, wondered why schizophrenics and bipolars and people like that, why do they stop taking their meds? Why? Well, I found out why. It's really hard to live as a zombie. You may never get overly sad, but you don't get overly anything. Something really good could happen and you're like, that's cool. And so I, without having been giving any directions, stopped taking those medications with I just stopped taking them cold turkey. Didn't realize you couldn't do that. Over the course of what I guess would be withdrawal from these medications, I didn't feel any side effects at all of the withdrawal, but I had 3 seizures. One, I was already in bed, no big deal. The other, I was sitting on the couch watching TV, again, no big deal. The third time, I was driving, and I completely checked out, and I was having a seizure. They weren't like grand mal seizures. I would just glaze over and be gone. And that happened while I was driving. I drifted into the lane beside me and got hit by another car. And I sat there for several minutes because I was still having a seizure. When I came out of it, it took me a couple seconds to realize I'd had a car accident. So I pulled over into the parking lot, but I was still really out of it. I can tell you that the ambulance they called for me, the guy tried to talk to me and I couldn't really respond. I was trying. Well, he didn't believe me, put me in it was like a punishment. He put me in a full neck brace and put me on a backboard and tied my hands to my sides, and I went to county hospital because it was the closest, which I happened to know where I was at the time that wasn't true. A county hospital in a big city like Dallas is not a place you ever want to go. And they left me like that, tied to a board for an hour out in a hallway. Finally got my arms free, was able to figure out how to get the C-collar off, and just left. And this was on New Year's Eve. A friend came, picked me up, and took me home. And then I celebrated New Year's Eve. I got home at 11 o'clock and celebrated New Year's Eve on what was such a great day. So, my friend that came and picked me up from county hospital did something that pissed me off so bad at the time, but was the right thing to do. He called my mother. She lived in Omaha, Nebraska, where I am now. A couple days later, she was at my front door with no warning, no phone call saying I'm coming. She didn't want to give me a chance to wiggle out of it. She showed up. My sister, who also lives in Dallas, showed up. My stepmother showed up, packed up a few things for me, and Mom took me to Omaha. My sister and my stepmother packed up the rest of my stuff in my apartment and sent it later. In Omaha, my mom and I went on a quest to find a doctor. This took months, maybe a year. We would find one, he would do all the tests all over again, and then he would tell me it must be in my head. A lot of doctors do that. If they cannot figure it out, then it must be in your head. And several doctors cut me off. I went through full-on withdrawal off of oxycodone. I don't know how many of you have been through withdrawal, but, real mega narcotic withdrawal. But the feeling is horrible. I had hallucinations. It was terrible. Then we finally, a recommendation from a friend of ours, went to see the nicest, kindest, most wonderful doctor in the world. And if I had his permission, I would give you his name. But just to let you know how amazing he was. And he said, and you've been seen by the best of the best. There's nothing we can do but control your pain. And so he worked with me over the next few weeks to find a mixture of medicines that worked for me and kept me comfortable, including treating the anxiety disorder that I had developed through all of this trauma, which I realize I have shortened to a story that doesn't sound so bad, but trust me, it was incredibly traumatic. Lost my driver's license. I haven't driven in 12 years. I wouldn't feel responsible driving on that much narcotics anyway. But so he really took care of me and became my doctor And while I was still pretty immobile and still couldn't do very much and still got a lot of help from my mother who I was living with, he kind of saved the day as far as pain goes. Then I met my husband online, who evidently I had met before. However, during the time that I was on lithium and Seroquel, and I kind of left this part out, I fell and hit my head. And I did get a pretty bad concussion in this fall, and it's like it knocked a bunch of memories out of my head. And I am horrible with names. If someone comes up and says, "Do you remember so and so?" I have no idea. I have to see a picture. Then I probably will. But, so my husband makes fun of my memory all the time. But, I live with it because I'm attached to him. But, so we got married and have been happily married for 8 years now. And then this wonderful doctor that I still love very much sent me a note that said he will not be prescribing narcotics anymore. That's where I'm going to end this part of the story. The rest of it fits into the pain pump category. So I will just leave you with the letter that said no more narcotics, and I do still love that doctor, and I still see him for some other problems that I have.
I'll give you plenty of time.
Yeah, and he gave us like 3 months notice to find another pain specialist or whatever we were gonna do. And so I got a reminder of that from my mother, who's helping me with this. But he's a great doctor. I'll give you a hint. He's in Fremont. But anyway, so we went on a look for a new pain specialist, and that is where I will start next week. Thank you so much for your patience. I know this one ran a little bit long. I gotta be honest, next week probably will too, and then I'll go back to my promise. But I really didn't want a script for this one. I wanted to just tell you the story. And I'm probably going to stick with that style for next week too, because I don't want to sit here and read to you when I'm talking about my personal story. So I hope you can understand that. Thank you so much for joining me on Chronic Pain Journey with Susie Wolf. Again, I'm Susie Wolf. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button. I am really trying to get to 100 subscribers because there's a lot of things you can't do on YouTube until you hit 100 subscribers. So please help me reach that goal. Hit that like button if you feel like it. When you subscribe, if you'll hit that notification button, you'll know whenever I post a new video, which is always going to be on Tuesdays, but to be honest, right now, it could be any time on Tuesday. So, well, I'm still getting this figured out. So bear with me, please. And one more time, please subscribe. Thank you very much.